How are you doing? This is Lenny Sherman.
And Matt Weatherford.
And we're doing something a little different. This is our first podcast. We're calling it Schmuckast. No, actually, I don't know what we're calling it. And it's a little early to be talking about this kind of thing, but we kind of wanted to beat people to the touch. Usually around Halloween. Halloween's my favorite time of year, but we've heard podcasts already with people who covered the entire spectrum of the Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween franchises. So we're going to switch it up a little bit. I know it's a little early by about 5 months, but we're doing Friday the 13th. We're going to cover all 12 films from 1980s classic right up to the remake from 2009. And we'll kind of give our thoughts on it. It's our first time, so it's probably going to sound like shit, and it probably is shit. But so, yeah, we're going to give that a try. So, 1980, Sean Cunningham needed a movie to make money and basically decided that horror was the most marketable. So, he came out with a movie with the clever title Friday the 13th, starring Betsy Palmer and an early Kevin Bacon at the time. It was pretty much a Halloween knockoff that had a lot of graphic violence and nudity, so it stood out for the time for the effects by effects artist Tom Savini. It was followed quickly a year later by 1981's Friday the 13th Part 2, a direct sequel. Basically more of the same, except as opposed to Mrs. Voorhees being the killer, it was Jason. What a shock. Followed once again another year later, Friday the 13th Part 3, directed once again by Steve Miner. This one was actually in 3D. They used a process back then that wasn't quite the blue and red glasses, very similar to how they do 3D today. It was also the movie where Jason finds his hockey mask. Finally, the fourth installment came out in 1984. It starred Crispin Glover and child actor Corey Feldman in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, directed by Joseph Zito. Fresh new cast, fresh new faces for the slaughter. That was supposed to be initially the final chapter of the series until 9 months later, Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, directed by Danny Steinman, where everybody was killed by a copycat Jason, and Tommy Jarvis returned from Friday the 13th Part 4, but played by a different actor. Tom McLaughlin helmed Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, where they finally gave Jason a makeover. He comes back from the dead to haunt once again. That's also the film in the series that had Arnold Horshack, Ron Pillilillo from Welcome Back Kotter in it. Friday the 13th Part 7 came out a year later, directed by makeup effects artist John Carl Buechler, starring Lar Park Lincoln as the sexy telekinetic girl Tina as she fought Jason and tried to revive her father. Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, thought of as one of the weakest in the series due to the fact that it does in fact take place mostly on a cruise ship. The last half an hour, however, did get us to New York, and we saw Jason go boxing Mike Tyson style.
There's two of us here. Two of us. It was Vancouver, wasn't it?
It was Vancouver because they were too cheap to afford the budget.
All right. And then there was Part 9.
Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, where Paramount decided, hey, this series isn't working out. We need somebody who can sell this guy. So they sold the rights to New Line Cinema, which set up the 10-year wait between Freddy versus Jason with a claw coming out of the ground and all of that. Then there was a 10-year wait between Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X, the 10th entry in the series, where our man Jason goes in outer space and kills more teen Star Trek stars.
I remember that.
Freddy vs. Jason, a movie that for whatever reason was in development hell for more than 10 years to get made, finally came out, reunited Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger against someone who is not Kane Hodder, Ken Herzinger. Pretty awesome flick, blood, guts, everything you'd want from a film like that.
Made a lot of money.
And then Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake, directed by Marcus Nispel, where once again they kind of relived the saga and started the series anew.
What are your thoughts then? I'm really asking you, what draws you to Friday the 13th?
Well, I remember when I was a kid, a lot of kids I knew were basically, they would always, after school they'd watch cartoons or they'd watch Disney cartoons, and I was really curious about R-rated films, and a lot of kids at that age want to watch R-rated films. So my mom was against it because of the nudity and everything, because, she didn't want me to have sex till I was like 55. But my dad was cool with it. His philosophy was basically that, if he's interested in all that kind of stuff, let him see it now and get it out of his system. Let him be exposed to it. And that way he's not going around, because if we don't let him see it now, he's going to do it behind our backs anyway. So I remember being up at like 2 in the morning. It would be like a Friday the 13th or a Halloween, October, and Cinemax, HBO would play like Friday the 13th, 1, 2, and 8 back to back. And I used to love those films. Later on, my dad would go out and we'd run them all. And
That's great.
So that's kind of what drew me to the series.
But why have you kept watching? Is it the kills? Is it Jason? The story?
They're just fun films to watch. I'm kind of a film snob. I know you are too. And
not a snob, but Well, yeah, actually, I am. Keep going.
We watch movies like Citizen Kane and Lawrence of Arabia, Schindler's List, and they're great films, but it's nice once in a while. Just it's brain candy. It's candy for your brain. It's nice to just sit back and watch.
I think it's the kills. I think those are always the highlights in most of these movies. It is the kills.
I disagree. I think it's the fine acting.
Well, how about 5 favorite kills? You want to do that real quick? Maybe you pick 3, I pick 2? How about that?
Let's go through each movie.
All right, we're going to start with that first movie then. It's one of my favorites. It really is.
Friday the 13th actually was not the first one I saw. I think the very first one I saw was like part 2 or part 6, I think, Jason Lives. And at the time it was always like Jason's the killer, and he was the killer for all. I remember actually I got into the series from the NES game. I had that. Used to scare the shit out of me. And you'd be playing the game and it'd be really boring, and all of a sudden he'd show up in his purple spandex and try to kill you with rocks.
I think it broke a lot of ground in the horror genre as well, to gore-oriented horror. Like when that knife went through Kevin Bacon's throat, everything was open then,
And that is, by the way, one of my top kills of the entire series.
It is. We have a top 5, I think, pretty cut. Most fans would probably agree because there are 5 kills that pretty much stand out the most, I would say. That's definitely one of them. Also, the beheading at the end is awesome, too. I love that part.
Yeah, I was going to say that. But going back to the first film, I remember watching that movie thinking that Jason was actually the killer in that movie. Because if you don't watch that first movie, I grew up with 8 Jason movies.
Right.
So you go back to that first one, I thought that Jason was the killer the whole time and that his mom... well, seriously, it's easy to think that if you've seen like any of the other ones first. And I thought his mom would just show up at the end. But I still thought that, they give you this point of view shot so you never really know who it is. So that's what I thought, and then later on, I was misinformed.
It borrowed lots of techniques from that really shitty movie, Halloween.
Yeah, what a piece of shit that was.
Yeah, the POV shots. It works great as a mystery because you don't know who the killer is. It could have been one of them. You really don't know. When you first see that movie, you don't know.
Bottom line, though, with the first movie, with Friday the 13th, it's kind of like a carnival ride. It's them showing you all these different kinds of tricks. And that's what it's always been to me. It's a fine line between watching violence and understanding that violence is synthetic. I was always just into how did they get that effect to work. It's funny, we talk about Kevin Bacon's death, and you watch it, just the original theatrical version looks so authentic even today. That spear going through today, even if they don't use CGI, which a lot of horror movies have resorted to, the effects still look really fake because they're looking to do it as cheaply as possible. But Tom Savini, man, he knew, this is a guy who went to war with Vietnam, shot a lot of Vietnam documentaries, knew what a dead body looked like. So even though his effects didn't look like real rotting flesh or whatever, he knew anatomy enough to make it work. Now, what I want to talk about is the Blu-ray release of Friday the 13th. There's a version called Friday the 13th Uncut, which the only thing they added was an extra shot of Kevin Bacon. It's a top view, drill coming through his neck.
Oh, okay.
You can totally see the prosthetic. It looks really bad, and it ruins the effect. Blu-ray can kiss my ass.
I always liked the characters in the original. I think there was some friendship there. There's some scenes in that movie, like with the snake under the bed, and then the little monologue about the rain and the thunderstorms. They really tried to flesh out these characters, and that goes a long way in a series like this.
And we're not, I know it's not like, again, it's not a Steven Spielberg film or anything like that. They're not deeply developed. But I think what a lot of the newer horror films lack, and I think there's this general idea that a horror movie just has to have blood and guts, doesn't need a lot of character development. I just think any movie needs character development. If you look at the Scream series, Scream 2, when Randy dies, people were devastated because he was such a cool character. Having a personality helps. It definitely helps a horror movie, even if it is a paint by the numbers. There's so many scenes in that first movie that resonate in a certain way. You've got there's where Marcy is talking about her dream about the rain coming down and blood droplets. Even though it's just a monologue and it's just a cheesy camp horror movie,
I cared about these people.
Yeah,
I did. I didn't want to see them die.
Yeah,
well, for the most part.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, you want Nettie to die.
And let us not forget one of the best moments in the series, the end, when Jason comes jumping out of that water on the boat. Just tremendous. Came out of nowhere.
A lot of people like that scene. I remember seeing that scene as a kid, even today. It's kind of a goofy scene, but if it had been a standalone film, if you didn't have all these sequels, that would have been kind of interesting. A lot of people who watch this series, they expect some kind of continuity, and there is none. He's a kid then, and then like 5 years later, where part 2 takes place, he's a full-grown adult. So I don't know what the hell.
I'll be honest, I gave this one a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's great. I think it started the whole series. I think it broke the mold in horror, and it's got 2 of the greatest kills in the whole series. To me, it's a standalone great flick just on its own merits. That, to me, it's one of the best in the series, to me, I would say.
in terms of the series, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10.
There you go.
Just
Good.
because I'm comparing it to, like, Jason Lives is probably my favorite one. In terms of horror movies, though, and how horror movies developed, and how a lot of movies, how it influenced a lot of copycats, like the Sleepaway Camp series.
Oh yeah.
I'd probably give it an 8.
There you go.
I know I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing with this, but I actually think when you compare Halloween to Friday the 13th, they're two films you can really that get compared and contrasted a lot. I think Friday the 13th is better. I think it's more effective. I think it's scarier.
It's more fun.
Yeah, more fun. All those POV shots. The acting isn't as annoying as Laurie Strode. And
Wasn't there an axe in the face in the first one?
yeah, absolutely, Marcy, right in the face.
I love it. All
It's
right.
Tom Savini,
You want to go to
man.
the second one? Part 2?
So yeah, part 2. I know you don't really think too much about this one.
I gave part 2 a 6 out of 10. I think it's a little bit of a lesser effort, but it's got some great moments, and it's obviously Jason, and I love the end with the mother's head. Awesome.
Yeah, part 2. Part 2 is where. Oh, by the way, the Jason was played in the first one by Ari Lehman, a child actor. Yeah, part 2 I think was one of the first ones I saw. And Ari Lehman was the kid who played Jason in the first one. He was the kid that jumped out of the water. Part 2, this is what's kind of weird, is that it's actually in Friday the 13th Part 2, Jason is actually played by 2 different actors. The one who got the credit was Warrington Gillette, but there's another Jason. What's his name?
We can't look it up now. Don't look it up now. Anyway, part 2 has Amy Steele. Was that her name?
Amy Steele.
I liked her a lot in this one. I think she's almost even a better how do you say it? Heroine? How do you say that? Heroine? Just like the drug. She's a better heroine even than the first one. What I didn't like about this movie, though, is that they kill off the star of the first one at the very beginning.
Steve Daskowitz.
There you go, Steve Daskowitz. Thank you.
So here's what's going on. Steve Daskowitz would be at all these horror conventions, and people would always say, like, hey, I'm here to see Warrington Gillette, and he'd be like, who's that? And everyone was saying that Warrington Gillette was Jason, when Steve Daskowitz was actually, I guess, Jason most of the film. There's a documentary out there called His Name is Jason that's actually it's narrated by Tom Savini, and he's on there, Steve Daskowitz, talking about his experiences in part 2. The scene where Jason jumps out of the window at the end of part 2 and
Right.
he's got the mask off.
Oh, yeah.
That's, when you see Warrington Gillette in person, you can obviously tell that's him. Apparently, all the stunts, that's Warrington Gillette, but just Jason stalking around, I guess that's Steve Daskowitz. Now, that's something that I've heard on these documentaries, and there's also a book, Crystal Lake Memories, which if you're a Jason fan, this is a must-get book for $40. It's like 400 pages of just interviews.
The highlight to me in part 2 was always the wheelchair death. My favorite. With the lightning shot and going down the stairs. So cool. He was about to get laid.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't he about to get laid? That girl was going to do something to him.
Like the double penetration with...
Yes, that's also another highlight.
Also didn't have the advantage of Tom Savini, so the makeup wasn't as elaborate. It was more of a that's kind of when the series started to the kills weren't as elaborate, but they started to be more in the film, which what made that first film so good was that it glorified the violence.
So what happened to Paul? That's really the question in everyone's mind. What happened to Paul? The end of 2 is quite mysterious, isn't it? Nothing's really explained.
He just fucked off. There's been different stories. I heard one that he was fired. I think one was just he decided not to come to work the next day.
I think he was killed in the movie. It seems like it. There's a scuffle, right?
There's a scuffle in it, and she's yelling, Paul, where's Paul at the end? And it's like, who knows? Probably.
That was a nice butt in this. I remember the butt and the rock when the rock hits her ass.
Yeah.
Can we say that? Ass?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Vagina, cock, dick, semen.
That was nice.
Swallow.
I always like the upside down slit throat too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, now, it always seemed, if you watch that scene carefully, I guess I'm wrong, but it always seemed like when he slashes that guy's throat hanging upside down, it seems like he's cutting it with the back of the machete, but I think it's the angle it was performed. It's weird. It looks like the back of the machete is...
So what would you give 2?
In the series, probably a 7.
A 7.
Just for 2 reasons. A, the ending where Jenny's putting on the shirt, and she's being psychological with Jason. I thought that was a much better ending than 1.
Right.
And it tackled the psychological aspects that he could just be a kid trapped in a man's body who was forced to watch this terrible thing happen to his mom. So
That's good.
By itself a 6, but just because of those 2 aspects of stuff.
Yeah, I'd give it a 6. I think it's got a great hero, and I think there's some cool kills, but a little bit of a lesser effort than the original because they're essentially almost the same film. But yeah, I do like the ending too. Then there was part 3, which was in 3D, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now part 3. Larry Zerner played Shelley, the guy the jokester in that film.
Oh, the actor.
The first 3 films had a jokester, and the first one it was Nettie. The second one I forgot his name.
I hated Nettie. I never understood why he wasn't killed.
Nettie was killed.
Was he the prankster in the second? No, the second one. The second one had that long, ganky fellow. But he never got his competent. Yeah. Oh, I hated him.
Hey, Teddy boy.
But anyways, yeah, part 3.
Oh, you're still in my truck.
Part 3, I always thought had a good hero too, and one of the best chases in the series, the final chase.
Now we're somewhat disagreed on who. I think you like 3 a lot, or you used to.
I couple it with it's about the same as part 2 to me, about the same.
You liked it because of the characters, though.
Some of them, I thought, obviously the actor stood out. Forgot his name already, but it also has a cool kill with the hand. He gets the mask. He gets the mask.
Yeah, which we'll get to the remake.
And that was a cool shot. They did that well.
We'll get to the remake later, but I love how when you talk about the making of the remake, they're like, oh, when he gets his it's awesome, and it's not. It sucks. It's the worst scene in the series. Yeah.
In the remake, you mean?
Right, yeah.
In part 3 with the rain, I think he puts it on in the rain, right? Or something like that.
No, he comes stalking out of the barn, and he's
Shelley,
just wearing it, and you can obviously tell it's not Shelley.
I like the hippies too. Actually, my favorite scene is the store scene when they're in the store. Can I buy you guys a beer or something?
Yeah. Is this your rubber?
Those motorcycle gang. Shit. And a great chase scene. I love the barn. I love it when she tries to get in the car and he smashes through the window. I thought, yeah.
3's got a lot of good atmosphere. I just thought, in terms of the character, what I didn't like about it was that the characters were more stereotypical. They didn't seem real to me. You had the buff hero guy. You had the damsel in distress. You had the 2 hippies. You had the jokester guy. You had the biker gang.
The hero in 3, which is interesting. She had a history with Jason, didn't she?
Yeah, that did make it really interesting. That was a pretty scary.
He attacked her in the woods or something.
Yeah, there's a flashback scene where Jason unmasked attacks her in the woods. And
right.
A very vague scene, but it's pretty scary. And then at the end, the chase scene where it's all cliche, but she's in the van and the van runs out of gas and she's on this bridge that's collapsing. That stuff's pretty good. Where I kind of thought it was ridiculous. Of course, all these movies are ridiculous. You have to suspend disbelief somewhere. Where he gets the axe in the fucking head.
Yeah.
Still walks after her like Frankenstein. His arms are all stretched out.
I hate when the black guy comes out of nowhere and tackles him.
This is what's weird.
He'd been laying there for 9 hours and just suddenly goes, oh wait.
Arm he gets something hacked off. There's a scene where this black guy clearly gets his arm hacked off or something and comes back at the end on a scratch on him and tries to save the day.
Yeah.
Killed again.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But anyway, and it lacks good kills.
Black guys aren't the only ones to die in horror movies. Sometimes they get killed twice.
And 3 kind of lacks good kills. I always thought the only really good one was the handstand one. Was pretty sweet.
The eyeball death.
Oh yeah, and I hated that dude. That dude was such a wimp. I'm so happy he died. That was so funny.
But 3 was also in 3D, and it's really hard. I've never seen it in 3D, but it's cool to see it. You can tell what scenes were done in 3D. The eyeball, obviously, the baseball bat. There's a lot of these shots that you can tell were in 3D. I wish breasts were in 3D, but they weren't.
So we're in pretty much agreement so far. I pretty much 2 and 3 are kind of clumped together for me. Obviously now we go to part 4, which I think is also one of the best in the series.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people agree. I think with that one, if you look at the cast of part 4, and we're not really delving into these movies so much because at least up until part 8, 1 through 7 are basically remakes of each other. They all take place in the woods. They're subtle, different. One guy explained it to me one time. He was just like, it's just different kills each movie. But if you've seen one, you've seen them all. That I can't argue that. That's true.
Oh, but this one is funny. This one has Crispin Glover's character and his friend, and they have the little computer, right? And they're trying to score the whole weekend.
Dead fuck.
That to me is funny. And hey, honey, you got a sister? Woof woof. It cracks me up. And also, Corey Feldman puts on a funny show when he sees those 2 people having sex. And the skinny dipping, too.
It's one
awesome.
You can actually relate to. I remember I was Corey Feldman in that movie when I was young, watching these movies that I wasn't supposed to be, doing somersaults in my bed and trying to hide it from my parents even though they knew what I was doing.
Right.
We know you're masturbating, Lenny.
And this could have the best kills. This movie could have all the best because Jason dies well. Jason has probably his best death in the whole series.
Tom Savini is back, by the way. That's why I think they're so good, and they're very brutal. He is fucking pissed off in this one.
Yeah, and you have the corkscrew death, which is great, Crispin Glover. And you also have the beginning in the hospital room when he twists the guy's head, isn't it? And then he saws it.
With the bow saw, yeah.
With the bow saw, yeah.
He takes the knife and shoves it in the nurse's cleavage and rams it up her chest.
Great chase scene. Jason ran in that movie, right?
He runs. Now the guy who played Jason, I
love him.
Say Ted White. he hated doing this movie because he thought that Joseph Zito, the director, was treating these kids like garbage. They were in water.
In the water, yeah.
Everybody got sick. Corey Feldman got sick because that scene where he's shaving his head off, his hair off, he had a bald cap on that was really tight, and it cut off the circulation to his brain. He got really sick.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
And that was Tommy Jarvis, right? That begins...
Jarvis, which a lot of fans probably refer to this as the Friday the 13th trilogy because parts 4, 5, and 6 carry on the story of Tommy Jarvis, even though Corey Feldman wouldn't go on to do it because he was doing Goonies and other.
I give 4 a solid 7. I think it's much better than 2 and 3 because the characters are funnier. There's a lot more energy to this, and the gore and kills are just sensational.
One word, twins.
Yeah. Put that in your little computer. It's definitely one of the best. Yeah,
Tootsies.
definitely the best sequel up to this point. What would you give it? What would you give it out of
You
10?
feel bad about the dog. The dog died.
Would you give it an 8?
Yeah, I'd probably give
On
it
a Jason meter?
probably an 8.
I'd say an 8 because, yeah, for sure. And now we go to probably what could be the worst one. If I could take any movie out of this series, it'd be 5.
And a lot of people. The thing with 5 is, first of all, it came out 9 months later, not even a year. And it was directed by Danny. It was directed by Danny Steinman, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think he did porn movies. One of the reasons I say that is because I think it's actually true. If you look it up, I think he actually did direct adult films. The way he talks in his interviews, he's always talking about slapping asses and banging hard cocks. And
Well, this one obviously doesn't have Jason either. That's what disappointed most people.
has him as an illusion. The story in part 5 is that Tommy Jarvis has been going from institution to institution for years after his family got killed in 4, and he finally gets to this mental institution where he has all these illusions about Jason. In the meantime, there's a guy running around pretending to be Jason, killing him. You know, he obviously has the mask. We think it's Jason at first.
Yeah.
He takes a few slices and still moves on.
Right.
But it turns out it's just a copycat.
Jason in this movie was the father of that kid that was killed, right, with the Snickers bar?
Right.
Isn't that right? Or he was like the ambulance person?
Spoiler!
Yeah, sorry, spoiler. I'm a dick. But it's part 5, so who really cares?
Part 5 too has probably the most nudity in the whole series, and that's
Some good nudity.
yeah. I mean, the asshole.
That girl in the woods was
But
amazing.
it does, like, almost every girl in there gets a pointless topless scene, and like close up, very provocative. Like, you can tell this guy probably has some experience.
You get every kind of tit in that movie. You get your small tits, you got your medium-sized tits, and then you got your big honkers.
Yeah, peach.
You get a smorgasbord of breasts. But like I said, if I can get rid of this movie in this series,
Big pussy, small pussy, smelly pussy.
find a pussy cheaper than that, fuck it.
Dusk till dawn. I love that movie.
But I give this one a 4 out of 10. There's not really any good kills. It's kind of flat. And honestly, you can go from 4 to 6, and it's awesome that way.
Well, I would classify this as so bad it's good.
Oh, there you go.
Just because it's still a bad movie, but yeah,
I always like the retard on the motorcycle. That always stood out to me.
the mom and her slow handicapped son or whatever,
You hurt me, Ma.
Ethelyn Jr.
That's right.
Ethel.
That's right.
Oh, horse shit. They had a lot of swearing too. Everybody was swearing like a truck driver in this movie.
Wasn't that with the one with the waitress that showed her breasts in the mirror?
Yeah, it's showtime.
That's right.
Yeah, and the two guys, I'm gonna fucking kill ya. The two like Italian guys, fucking kill ya.
The worst moment in this movie is when that little black kid came out in the tractor.
Ah, he's
Uh,
angry. There's some pretty cheesy scenes.
Now, here's a good question. Is this the worst one in the series?
I don't think so. The worst part about this one is it's got a definite cheap factor. It really feels like it was filmed in someone's backyard. That's what it feels like. And the kills are they're interesting, but the makeup doesn't really show.
Hello, Pam.
It's a guilty pleasure. I would probably.
It's not the worst.
I don't think it's the.
I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10.
There you go.
It's because it was the one that was supposed to reinvigorate the series or restart it, and it didn't really.
You haven't given a 5 yet. Oh, of course, you like all these movies, though, too.
I like most of these, yeah. Wait till
That's
we get to the
good.
remake.
So Friday 5 is not the worst one. We're going to find out which one he thinks is the worst one, though.
Would you say
Yeah.
it's the worst one?
No.
Okay. There we go.
It's close. Bottom 3.
Yeah,
Definitely bottom
put
3.
it in the bottom 3, but it's a guilty pleasure. It's an entertaining movie, and when you get higher up, some of them aren't even that entertaining anymore. Remake.
This next one is pretty special because I think both of us agree is probably the best one, and that's Friday 6, Jason Lives.
Yeah. Now, an interesting story. Corey Feldman, I know, has always wanted to come back and do like a Friday 2.0, like with Halloween H2O, where he faces off with Jason again. And he said he watched if he were to do it, if it was up to him, he would kind of act like maybe 5 actually happened, but then after that he would disregard the sequels, kind of like what Jamie Lee Curtis did with the Halloween series.
Right.
But I kind of liked the direction this took. It was about Tommy Jarvis once again coming back, once again played by a different actor, third actor in the series to play him. And facing his fears, and by doing that, he accidentally awakens Freddy. Now, what's awesome about this movie is there's so many homages and nods to other horror movies.
Yeah.
You've got Jason being resurrected by lightning.
That's so sweet. I love the beginning of this movie.
You've got Arnold Horshack coming in there, getting killed with his fist through the stomach and everything.
Yeah.
He's just really funny.
My favorite is the cop that gets snapped in half.
It's definitely a very campy one. So many memorable moments.
And the kids, man.
It's the first one that actually has kids at a fucking summer camp. Who knew, right?
And it's probably my favorite. And you can tell they had a great time making this movie.
This was like one of the only ones where they didn't actually have drugs on the set. Like,
right.
Like Tom McLaughlin's wife was like a set PA or something, and she was like the den mother of the set. Like, she made sure everybody had fun. Of course, there were kids present, so you couldn't really have a lot of drugs anyway. But a lot of these movies were like drug movies, people delivering like drugs on the set.
Yeah.
And
the key to this movie, I always thought, was the mood of it and the humor. And you could just tell, like I said, they had a good time doing this. I think they liked what they had. And
there was a lot of pop culture. The scene where the girl dies and the credit cards come out. And in the theater, there's always some jackass who says, "Don't leave home without it."
That's right. You can't. Great kills in this one, too. You know, the ones we mentioned.
Cemetery at the beginning, a great atmosphere. I don't think we've ever really seen a cemetery. There have been, like, Part 4 had one, but this actually has a chase scene in the cemetery. It's got a great fight scene at the end where Jason catches on fire and
in the lake
underwater.
Yes.
I mean,
I love it.
It's got everything you want in and Jason.
Jason, come get me! It's me you want. Remember?
Come on, maggot head.
It's me you want. Yeah, and I love the girl in that movie too. I always thought that was well played too. The little.
There's a scene where they're driving and they go down Cunningham Road, and then he's waiting at a supermarket called Karloff's Cadavery or something.
This really was to me the last great Jason movie. Like, as far as great, I give it an 8. I thought it was just fantastic, and the humor works. The kills are great. It's probably the best overall film.
As a film in the 80s, I would say an 8. Actually, I'd give it a 9 for a Jason movie. It's that good because it's entertaining.
It is.
Alice Cooper soundtrack. I've got The Man Behind the Mask on my iPod along with Teenage Frankenstein. And
someone new to the series, someone who's never seen a Friday the 13th movie, would this be the one you recommend?
Absolutely. If you're not into, like, kills and stuff, it's a fun...
It's fun.
It's a fun movie, too. If you like hard... Like, this is a typical 80s slasher movie.
And it's fucking Jason. And it's Jason.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say, this is probably actually my favorite performance as Jason, too. C.J. Graham. This was the first time where Jason comes back and he's like a zombie now. He's he's no longer a human being. And the way he moves in this, it's not quite as lurky as Kane Hodder was. Kane Hodder, I thought, was the most frightening. But when I think of Jason, I think of C.J. Graham and Jason Lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, the Tommy Jarvis saga comes to an end with this one as well, right?
It did, except that I actually wrote a screenplay called Friday the 13th Bloodshed, where Tommy Jarvis comes back and actually fights off Jason again.
Yeah.
So for me, it didn't fucking end there.
Why didn't he come back in 7? That's a shame he didn't.
I mean, I guess there's only...
The story was told, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. How many horror movies have the villain the heroine come back?
Yeah.
It never happened.
I think Tommy Jarvis could have had one more movie in him. Because I think he really is Jason's arch nemesis. Because he's the only character also that appears in more than one movie. You know, so.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool to see that come to an end.
He is probably my favorite hero of this series.
So that's the most highest rated one so far for us. Friday 6. Go see it. It's the best one.
Yeah.
And that goes to 7. So tell us what you think about part 7.
Blood. I think that was the first one I saw like actual footage from. I remember like on Cinemax. There were some really cheesy commercials for it back when it first came out to cable, where it was just like. There's that guy, the writer dude was sitting there and Jason's behind him and he's like, what am I supposed to do or something, run or whatever, and then you hear this fucking awful narrator, no, you idiot, the new Blood, you gotta go see it.
The highlight of 7, of course, is I think Tina and her psychic powers. The end fight at the end of 7 is one of the highlights of the whole series.
I would say Lar Park Lincoln, I think, was the most attractive.
I
really love Lar Park Lincoln and her performance in this. Now, I heard Lar Park Lincoln on set was actually kind of a bitch. That's what I heard. I don't know, because I think she had some. I think she did soap operas or some TV before that. So she had her chops when she got into this movie.
And who did 7 introduce?
Kane Hodder is Jason. Now, when you see Jason in this one coming up from the water and he's all shredded up and everything. This is probably the best performance of Jason in terms of how scary he is. He is bulky.
I agree.
Like a monster. He's no longer the Jason we saw in the past films. He's like the Hulk.
The heavy breathing and the movements.
I mean, part of his face is exposed, which is awesome. The one thing I
Spine.
didn't like, that was all good. The one thing I didn't like was when in almost all these movies, at the very end, they show his mask, they show his face, which I kind of think is a mistake. Like when you're younger, when you're a kid, it's like, gee, I wonder what's under there. But nothing could ever meet the expectation of what you're thinking that face could look like. This movie just fucking ruins it. I hated how he looked in this.
And what I don't like about 7 the most is the kills are pretty freaking dry. This movie apparently was cut to hell. They cut out a lot of gore.
Yeah, but if you look at, like, I know the original ending, when the dad pops out of the water, John Carl Beekler, the guy who directed it, he had this prosthetic made up of the dad coming out and being all skeleton and everything. If you see what that looks like, it looks fucking ridiculous. It just doesn't look good. There are a lot of kind of hacking and slashing, but I don't think that was all the MPAA. I think John Carl Beekler kind of misdirected it too.
I liked Melissa, the blonde slut.
Yeah.
She gets a good kill too. Axe right in the face.
Fuck you, Bo!
I'm gonna have another cold shower.
Yeah.
What was the best kill in 7? I can't even think of one. You know what I mean? They are really all cut.
They're pretty generic. They're not very good.
Not very gory.
Well, dude, you're forgetting probably the best one in the whole series, sleeping bag death.
That's true. That one. That's right. He's right. That one. But other than that, that's right. That's probably the best part of the movie.
It would have been funny, and I think they were supposed to do it more than once, where they slammed her like 5 times.
They cut it, yeah.
And I think they cut it. But that was a good death, memorable for some reason.
I give 7 a 6 out of 10. I like the psychic angle, and
We didn't. It was trying to do something different, so it tried to kind of copy off of Carrie. Lara Park Lincoln's character has these telekinetic powers. She uses them to accidentally. She tries to. She when she was a kid, it shows a flashback of her as a kid, and she uses these powers to kill her dad by accident. And she tries to bring her dad back years later, and ends up bringing Jason back. So she's got this wicked psychiatrist who's trying to keep her locked up, and he's just a prick. Love
the final battle.
Final battle's pretty cool. That explosion in the end is a little ridiculous.
Yeah. You know what I noticed? 6 on, really, each movie tried to do something different.
It did.
They tried to make it fresh.
The music in 7 is very good. Again, Kane Hodder was excellent as Jason. I think he deserves the role. Again, when I think of Jason, I think more of C.J. Graham, because Kane Hodder is just a big guy.
So what do you give 7 out of a 10?
I'd probably say a 7.
A 7?
When I watched it when I was younger, it didn't really stand out to me. Still doesn't really. But over the years, I've appreciated it more. There's still a lot of...
Every single one we've been pretty much one off, so that's fine with me. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And now here comes one of your guilty pleasures. That we know how much you love this one. Friday Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Any movie in the 80s that takes place in New York, it could be a really...
Vancouver.
The fucking Beastmaster. Yeah, Jason Takes Vancouver. But it could be the fucking Beastmaster.
How stupid does that sound? Jason Takes Vancouver. Like, who would really care?
Jason Takes somewhere...
Who would care?
Yeah. Jason Takes Cleveland.
This one, obviously, the change of setting is nice. You don't have the forest and the campsites. So I thought that was a fresh take on the series.
Everybody comments that most of the movie takes place on the boat, but it seems like there's a lot that goes on in New York.
Yeah, it does. It does, though.
There's a teacher that gets killed. Jason fucking boxes a student like Mike Tyson on the rooftop.
But it was only 1/3 of the film was in New York. That's what pissed people off.
Yeah, but there's a lot that happens. There's a scene on a subway. There's a scene in a restaurant. There's a scene in the sewers. They really take advantage, and you see.
They did, yeah.
You do see the Statue of Liberty. It's albeit a very wide shot. They probably took stock footage of Ghostbusters too, but
it could have used more New York though. 1/3 is not enough to call it Jason Takes Manhattan.
But personally, for what they did in New York, I mean, the fucking heroine gets kidnapped by drug dealers and kind of rescues her.
I remember that.
But I don't really know what else could have happened in New York. I thought they took advantage of the locations, given it was shot in fucking...
Great boxing scene. That's one of my favorite parts in the series, too.
His fucking head just...
Take your next shot. Take your best shot. He punches him in the hockey mask.
And keep in mind, Jason's supposed to be retarded, so it's like this guy somehow learned how to fight.
Yeah, there's some cool kills. I guess the blonde on the boat, that was pretty cool.
This one I think had the most kills, though. 14 kills, I think. And a lot of them you don't see. I like the kill in the boat in the beginning where the one guy gets the harpoon shoved through his chest.
Which one does have the most kills?
I think this one does.
8?
I on screen.
We'll have to look that up, people. We're sorry. We should know.
I'm not talking about Jason X where he kills like 20 people off screen. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actual characters that you see die.
Oh, you might be right.
Does.
School is out, Magellan. Yeah. All right.
Did have a teacher. This one also has good characters. I like the main actress heroine Rennie. I liked her a lot. She also has a backstory that involves her uncle and Jason meeting up when they were younger. And the ending kind of always pissed me off. Now, this was the first. When I was growing up, there were 8 films. So Jason Goes to Hell was still a few years off. And at this point, from 1 through 8, you basically had one movie every year. And then between 8 and 9, you had like a 3-year gap from 89 to 93. So we thought this was the last one, especially in the last scene. He gets toxic waste dumped on him, and he turns into that kid again. That was the ending. It confused the hell out of me. But
Yeah, I never liked the ending of 8.
and I didn't like how he really looked in that one.
And why was he like in the mirror? Was she imagining all that when she sees him like in the water?
It's left to the imagination.
Left to the imagination.
Like Stanley Kubrick. It just when Stanley Kubrick does this, it's a genius. But when like it happens in a horror movie, oh, that fucking sucks, sucky. I don't know. It's left to the imagination.
Because it's Jason Takes Manhattan.
So what would you give Manhattan? I know a lot of people.
I had it as a 5, but you've convinced me to put it up to 6.
There's a lot that goes on.
6 out of 10.
There's a lot that goes on, even if it's on a ship, even if it's called Jason Takes Titanic. I mean, which it pretty much is. Doesn't hit an iceberg, but
What's your favorite kill in 8? But maybe besides the boxing.
Boxing head. The cop for some reason always stands out to me.
What happens to the cop?
He pulls him out of the car and you just see blood fly. But
okay.
The needle through the guy's chest.
Oh yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, just taking the guy and putting his head through the pipe. I mean.
So where should Jason go? Because he every movie now he goes to hell. Right. He's gone to Manhattan and he goes to space. Where should he go next? Kmart.
A better movie.
I want to see him go to like Alaska and go to like a drive-in McDonald's and just kill everyone.
We'll get to that, but I know the next Jason movie to have come out before they decided that it was a bad idea was he was supposed to take place in the snow. That would have been fucking awesome. Blood on snow with Jason. If you do it right, fucking that would have been.
Was this the movie that pretty much ended the deal with the movie studio?
With Paramount?
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie I think cost $5 million. At the time it was like the most expensive one, but it had done the least amount of business. It did terribly at the box.
The series was starting to suffer, it seems, at this point. Yeah. Even with 7 and then 8. So, do you want to go on to 9? Jason Goes to Hell?
You said it was a 6. I would say for me, honestly, it'd be an 8 for me.
An 8, that's good. That's a top 3, isn't it?
I enjoy there's nothing not enjoyable about that movie. If you like the other ones, you'll like this one. It was something different.
That makes it a top 3 for you.
Jason Goes to Hell was the most bizarre one, but people liked that because it was so different. Yep. But they didn't like 8 because it was different.
All right, look at part 8 getting some love from Lenny. That's awesome.
So Part 9 was actually the first one I saw in theaters. My dad took.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So think about how disappointing it was at the time to see it because there was almost no Jason. He dies the first 10 minutes of the movie. Basically what happened with this was Paramount didn't know where to take this franchise. So they basically just sold it to New Line Cinema because they had such success with Nightmare on Elm Street because the Jason movies were kind of failing. Also, Paramount had a lot of franchises. They had Indiana Jones, they had the Godfather movies, they had Star Trek. They didn't want Friday the 13th. It was kind of bringing them down, even though the movies were making money because they're making them for 5 cents and making millions of dollars.
Did they make a bad choice with this movie?
Probably commercially, but...
It was the Possession movie, right? Possession.
Oh, you're talking about Jason Goes to Hell?
Yeah. Where were you?
Jason Takes Manhattan still.
Oh! Well, we can go there.
You asked if they made a bad choice.
No, I think Jason 8 was just fine.
Jason Goes to Hell,
Not really, because there's no Jason, like you said.
They were doing... I commend them for doing something different. It's hard for me to give this a rating and compare it to the other films because it's not really a Jason film.
The end fight was pretty ridiculous. It was more like a wrestling match.
Hey, that was funny. I mean, you see Jason throwing away the main character, Steven, all over the place on this jungle gym set, and that's kind of funny.
The highlight to 9 to me was the Duke. I always liked the Duke, and also I liked the Restaurant Massacre.
Played by Stephen Williams.
I love the Restaurant Massacre. He goes in there and kills like 8 people.
Film. It's like fucking Martin Scorsese directed this film.
I love when he punches that girl and I forgot the effects what they look like, but that looks pretty sweet.
Her mouth gets caved in like an iron. It's like a cartoon.
He just throws that guy on the hot irons or whatever.
So in Part 9, Jason basically jumps in and out of bodies. You start off with a doctor who... Well, at the beginning of the movie, Jason chases a girl. You find out that she was part of the FBI, and they blow him to shit. The FBI all surround him and blow him up. And that's it. And then you've got Creighton Duke, this bounty hunter who knows how to kill Jason. They fucking borrow right from Jaws in this scene. You know, say the dialogue he says.
Wow, that's a long one. I don't want to say the whole thing.
50,000 for 500,000 for that. You get the mask, the machete, the whole damn.
Oh, the whole damn thing. That's right. But yeah, it's an all right entry.
10
It's an all right entry, like you said. It's pretty violent. Like I said, the Restaurant Massacre really stands out to me as real
the
mayhem.
whole body jumping thing, and you don't see Jason in his true form. You see human actors walking around pretending to be Jason, but it kind of works in a sense. When he looks in the mirror, you see Jason with the mask on, which is kind of stupid. And of course, at the end, there's a scene where Jason dies, and the hand comes up, the Freddy claw, and grabs his mask in, and that's what set up the debate for Freddy versus Jason, which took 10 years.
That finale was pretty fun though, with Jason being in the ground and all the rate. I can't remember it exactly, but when he gets sucked into hell.
Yeah,
that was always cool.
I don't know if it was a great way to end the series, but given the series track record, the fact it wasn't a good way to end the series because it was such a different film, and it was New Line, and they didn't call it Friday the 13th Part 9, so it's kind of weird, even though it's technically the 9th installment.
So that's the end of the series. So I think that's it. Oh wait,
that was the second.
Oh
series.
No! Wait a minute, he goes to outer space. Anyways, before we get to that, what's your rating for Part 9? I give it a 4.
Again, I would probably say a 7.
Oh, a 7. That's good.
But only as a standalone horror movie, and only because they tried something.
That's a positive review then altogether.
I said a few movies back that there are some movies that aren't really entertaining, and this one, it's entertaining, but in a different way.
Right.
It's a different kind of genre, really. It's like a sci-fi horror movie. So it's very weird to swallow. I mean, even Jason Takes Manhattan wasn't that much different from the others. This one doesn't feel like a Jason movie.
I like 8 a lot better than 9 for sure. And now we get to Jason Goes to Space. Jason X.
I thought this was a joke when they first talked about it.
It was. Not much to say about this one. I like some of the kills, but overall, I mean, you can tell they had fun, though. That's the bottom line.
High definition, and back then, this was when George Lucas was just pioneering shooting feature films in HD. Now everybody's doing it with red cameras and everything, but 3D. But that was revolutionary. Because it takes place in outer space, you see all kinds of special effects. The only thing is, they're not done well. These are some of the worst science fiction effects I've ever seen.
Well, the writing had some...
Literally, these effects look like you're playing the first Half-Life on Windows 3.1.
Orgasmic.
Yeah.
The water effects. You can tell they had fun, I guess, but, I think it suffers from bad writing and acting, and it's cool to see Jason in a spaceship, though.
It was cool after Jason Goes to Hell. I would actually say, believe it or not, it's probably, at least for the Jason fans, a little better than Jason Goes to Hell.
Probably.
Because it's Jason. And, I mean, seriously, if you think about it, it's Jason in the woods, Jason on a spaceship. Jason on a cruise ship, Jason on a spaceship. There's some really cool death scenes. The girl that he freezes the face.
Yeah, he crushes it. He crushed the hell out of that thing.
The one where the guy falls on the screw and the girl's like, you're screwed.
But yeah, so that's kind of how the series ended until the remakes. And unfortunately, we were just talking about this. We think the series might be over for good.
Well, there's still one more to talk about, but let's get back to Jason X. Jason X, what was happening? Jason X, actually, they were going to release it in 2000. New Line had a new CEO or new owner, new president or whatever, that put the movie on the shelf for 2 years. And basically, Sean Cunningham produced Jason X because they were still kind of trying to go with the idea of Freddy versus Jason. For whatever reason, they could not get this bastard movie out. So they did Jason X, which was in space, and the Sean Cunningham's version of Jason X and what the director wanted it to be are two different things. Eventually, because Sean Cunningham had final say, they came up with his version. I would have liked to see what the director would have loved.
You're right. I like the sets they use in this movie, too.
Yeah,
look pretty cool.
It's got a very small, independent, direct-to-video feel. I hate to say that, but the effects are so bad. It takes place in a lot of narrow, confined, dark.
I like the cyborg.
But
the
it's
girl
too, he's unconscious. Then the two start having sex. And he wakes up like a
that's a theory in Jason. That's really the reason he kills them is the sexual promiscuity or whatever it's called.
And, it goes both ways. A lot of filmmakers in the series have said that that's not the case. It's not a morality tale, but it kind of is in a way. You can't really deny. That's just what it's become. Especially
what else you'd call it? Yeah.
Teenagers.
So what's the next one you want to go over?
I'm not done yet. Jason X has some other stuff. The virtual
Keep going.
reality scene. There's a nostalgic scene. The worst part about this movie is when he gets blown to hell at the end and becomes the Cyber Jason, or they call him Uber Jason.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's on a holodeck, like in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it's all Crystal Lake, and they actually use the original music and everything. But he's Cyber Jason, so it doesn't have that effect. There's a spoof also where he hits the two girls with the sleeping bag.
Yeah, that was good. You want to smoke some weed and have premarital sex?
We love premarital sex.
That's right.
But 2002, what was happening in 2002? What was I doing in 2002? What was I? Remember what I did that year?
Short Future?
No.
Attack of the Bee movies.
Here we go. I was just coming out of film school, and I shot a film on 16mm film called Attack of the Bee Movies, in which I played Jason.
I remember that.
Same year that Jason X came out, so I was kind of hyped. And again, Jason X is out in theaters, and I was disappointed by it. But I've come to like it more. Jason X, aside from the remake, I would say is probably the worst in the series, just because it's such a ridiculous idea that's not even really done that well.
Jason X is the worst in the series?
Probably.
Oh. You gave it a 7, didn't you?
I didn't say what I gave it. Jason Goes to Hell, I gave it a 7.
You're right.
Jason X, I would say 6. But I'll maybe a 5, maybe a 6, because there are some really entertaining moments. But I will say, as a goofy science fiction movie,
Right.
it's watchable. As a Jason movie, again, it's weird. It's like Leprechaun in space. It's like he doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
So then Freddy versus Jason. Now I know when this movie first came out, you really didn't care for it.
Huh? I didn't?
I didn't think you did. You had. Go ahead. Well,
I loved it.
go ahead.
It's one of my favorites.
I've talked a lot. You talk about this.
No, I liked, I don't know. I can't. Why do you give me the bad movie? I don't want to talk about that movie.
Freddy vs. Jason. Why don't you like it?
No, I love it. I swear.
Are you afraid of what people are going to think about you because it made a lot of money and
Stop yelling at me. I only wanted to talk about 1 through 10, to be honest with you. That's all I have. I like the first 10 films. If you want to talk about the remakes, I never even seen the remakes yet.
Well, then why are you bad mouthing them?
I'm not. I gotta watch them first, then I'll badmouth them. Actually, let's watch it, and I'll badmouth it as we watch it.
So this is turning into a commentary about Friday the 13th.
I could talk a little about Friday vs. Jason, but that's it. That's all I got.
Go ahead, talk about Freddy vs. Jason. Because I know you didn't like it for a while. Did you still not like it, honestly?
I'll have to watch it again. I'll have to check it out. I think I don't know. I think it could have done it better. That's all. Really, I think they could have taken their time and really, because this was an important project. I think Freddy vs. Jason had a lot of potential, and I think a lot of fans were. It was an important project, and I really still feel like they could have done better.
Here's my spin on it. It's like Duke Nukem Forever. Duke Nukem Forever took 14 years to fucking make. It came out. I wasn't expecting it to be worth 14 years of wait. I was expecting it to be like a Duke Nukem game, and that's what I got. Because I knew in 14 years they weren't going to make it. You can't top a game that's got 14 years of expectation behind it.
Right.
So when Duke Nukem Forever came out, I fucking love that game. It's not the best game I've ever played, but for the nostalgic factor, just to be able to play another Duke Nukem game at least, that was cool.
It goes a long way, doesn't it, nostalgia?
Yeah, and that's what Freddy vs. Jason was about. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Everyone badmouths that movie. I don't think it was a bad movie. I think it was a good movie. I think it came out 16 years too late. If Crystal Skull had come out like a year after Last Crusade, I think everybody would have fucking loved that movie.
I like the Jason Mewes stoner. Wasn't there a Jason Mewes lookalike?
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, but Freddy vs. Jason, it's kind of the same thing. It took him 10 years to make. The movie was not worth 10 years.
Yeah.
This movie should have come out in the 90s when I really wanted this movie to come out, not when I'm in my 20s and I don't care about these movies that much anymore.
I love the final shot, though. Love it. I loved how they did that.
Awesome job. Here's my spin on Freddy vs. Jason. I really enjoyed it. Well, let me give you my spin on it first, you fuckface. You need me for something? Freddy vs. Jason.
Not on the podcast.
I'll fuck you later. Freddy vs. Jason.
Well, that we could put on the podcast.
This is live, For what it is, though, Freddy vs. Jason is... I can't...
Everyone vote on what you think he's doing to her right now. What position do you think they're in right now? Cast your votes.
She's standing like 20 feet away from me, saying, "Get the fuck away from me, bad husband." Well, if Matt's not going to talk...
I just have some questions I thought we should talk about. I think they're cool.
With that movie? Or
all the series in general, yeah.
Well, let's get on talking about all of them, and then we can...
Oh, I'm done with Jason X. I'm waiting on you. And Freddy vs. Jason, I'm done. So you fucking hurry up.
Okay, Freddy vs. Jason, I liked how, when they crossed the genres together, I liked how they used the different stories, how Freddy uses Jason as a puppet, basically, to get the kids of Elm Street to remember Freddy again. I liked how they did all that. The characters, I don't know. At first, I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the whole, oh my god, he killed my mother. There's so many tragic heroines in these movies. Fucking Scream was the same way. So that was tired. I didn't like the Jason Mewes stoner. That I just everybody thought that was Jason Mewes.
Let's sacrifice the virgin. Remember that? She's like, what?
And also the fact that they made Jason afraid of fucking water in this one.
My favorite line in that movie was, "My best friend was just killed, Dad. So why don't you give me some fucking space?"
I mean, a girl literally calls Freddy a faggot.
Oh, I remember that.
A girl calls Freddy a faggot.
Dark meat.
That kind, yeah. I mean, that was kind of in bad taste.
Well, I'm going to ask you then. Because we're going to go here now. Who was your favorite actress hero in the whole series?
In the whole series,
You like Tina the most, you say, or just overall, not just looks, but just their strength.
I'd Adrian King from part
From one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was a pretty scary situation, wasn't
It was shitty that she died at the beginning of part 2.
That is the strength of one I love, because you don't think she's crazy at first, but as the film goes on, she's slowly realizing how crazy this woman really is.
Yeah.
And she realizes she's with the killer. I always love that moment. Anyways, who was the second best Jason? Next to Kane Hodder.
I said C.J. Graham.
Who was from 4? Or
6?
6?
Yeah.
I have to watch it again. Yeah, he did a good job.
Kane Hodder would be second, although Kane Hodder was the scariest, but he's not who I think of when I think of Jason immediately. C.J. Graham is.
Here's a good one. What's the dumbest way that Jason was ever killed?
The dumbest way that he was killed?
I think 7. I think the dead father rising out of the water and just pulling him into the water, and that's how he dies. That was pretty bad.
That was bad.
That's like really bad. I'm like, really?
What's
the worst way?
I would say 8 would be up there, maybe.
Mama!
Yeah. I don't know, though. That one's still...
Toxic water?
Toxic waste still stands out to me, so not the worst. Jason X, probably.
You think Jason X has the worst way to die?
Actually, we haven't gotten to the remake. We haven't gotten to the remake.
Well, you know. So you would say...
Well, Freddy vs. Jason, let me just finish up there. It gives you what you want. It still wasn't worth 10 years, but these aren't Steven Spielberg movies. They're not, great works of art. So I'd give probably Freddy vs. Jason, just for the nostalgia value, an 8.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's a good movie, and it's stupid, but it's called Freddy vs. Jason.
Made a lot of money, too.
Yeah, it's not called Shakespeare Meets Citizen.
It made a lot of money. Well, you get what you pay for.
Deservedly so. It's what you'd expect. It's like watching a fight match. It's like, put your money in one or the other. You'll be entertained either way.
Here's an even better question. What is the best Jason death?
Not the remake, which we're going to talk about next.
I always went with 4 because I always thought the knife going through the head was awesome.
4 and 6, probably.
6 in the water? Oh, the boat propeller?
The boat motor and the fight underwater. The whole scene was good.
Yeah, those two. Those two are probably the best ones. Obviously, his mother.
Actually, 9 I thought stands out because that was for the longest. 10 years between 9 and 10. You thought 9 was really the last one.
That's a good point.
So I thought that was a good death.
Going into hell.
Yeah, that last scene was pretty good. But I would say definitely 4 and 6 with the effects.
Do you have a favorite character to be killed that was killed off?
Favorite character? You mean like favorite death altogether?
Well, no, just the person that you liked that you were sad to see die. Is there anyone that you had any remorse for? Was there really anyone, you sick bastard?
Like I said, Adrian King,
Yeah.
when they killed her off at the beginning of part 2, it was like you forgot what made her a good character. It's like...
That is sad. That's a good one.
Totally tossed that out the window.
Anyone else?
Again, these movies aren't about character development, but that's only because that's what the filmmakers bring to it. If they had given Adrian King like a story arc...
Yeah.
I think I don't know if she wanted to do it because Adrian King had she had a story of like a stalker for many years. She had a stalker for years that made her, she broke out in tears one time talking about this guy.
That's a good choice. I like that.
Yeah.
Anyone else stand out? I always felt bad for Shelley. Maybe.
But he was a dick. I mean, he didn't know when to stop. He annoyed me.
Didn't he walk in with his throat slit or something?
Yeah, because he faked his death first, and then he really got killed. And he didn't
the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
Anyway, we get to the remake, which I guess you haven't. I never showed you the remake.
I'll have to watch it sometime when I'm depressed.
What's your overall? What's your overall reaction to remakes, though? Because I know Hollywood's full of them. What do you think of
Yeah. Well, sometimes it can be necessary, I think, but sometimes it's not necessary. I don't know. I think if the original's good on its own merits, I don't know. Seems like a waste of money. I'd rather have a fresh idea.
Can you close that door?
I'd rather have a fresh idea. I don't know. It's a tricky subject. Some remakes are better, though. There are occasions. So anyways, the remake. You liked it?
No, I didn't. I thought the remake, honestly, to me, was the worst in the series, but not for the reasons you would think. My biggest problem in the remake of Friday the 13th, essentially, it takes place 20 years after his mom died. So it could be another sequel, except in this one he starts off without a mask. He has the bag over his head, and then he finds the hockey mask and becomes the Jason we know. What's nice about him, too, is they give him a bit of a personality. He's a guy who's been in the woods on his own for years, so he has all these traps underground that a maze of tunnels that he lives in. As opposed to living in a shack, he actually has all this stuff underground. Whatever. So I liked all of that. I thought he was a very brutal Jason. He was a very scary Jason. What it seemed like they were trying to do with him, though, was they tried to make him like a Leatherface, a character who is kind of macabre, very disturbing. So that ass,
I tell you.
that aspect of
I love you, but I really love you, and you walk away.
I love to see you go, but I hate to see you leave.
That's right.
Watch you leave, whatever.
I hate to watch you leave because your ass is too fat. Anyways.
Thanks. So I liked the aspect of the thing with Jason, the remake I didn't like was that they tried to make him a macabre horror movie icon. They buffed him up. It seemed like they buffed him up just so they could sell some more, their line of McFarlane toys.
Right.
Just to redo the character's look and everything, which it's like Godzilla, how they remade him in the American version with CGI. They didn't do that with Jason, but they remade him to be just more buff, and the movie itself had a very serious tone to it. And I thought...
He kills everyone, right?
I believe so.
He gets everyone?
The way he gets the mask is stupid. The ending is cliche. It's the worst ending, the worst way they killed Jason. I just didn't... I thought it was lazy. I thought it basically just was them throwing in our faces, hey, we know you're going to pay for this movie, so why...
So this is the worst one in the series?
I would say this is the worst in the series.
That's sad.
I'd probably give it a 5. And I should give it lower because it is a remake of a movie that I don't think needs to be remade. I think they should keep doing sequels.
Right.
It's like doing the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street where they recast Freddy. The first movie to do that, but that's not what the fans want. The fans want Robert Englund, or just don't make any more.
Right.
They don't want a sequel with a guy who's Freddy who's not Freddy. So
looking back, the whole series...
That's all 12 movies.
So let me ask you, any lines pop out to you? Favorite lines that you have in the series?
It'd be really funny.
What?
If it turned out we weren't recording this whole time.
It says record, asshole. I can see it.
But you don't know computer.
Lenny's like, that's the beauty of my trick, man. But anyways, any good lines? I love old Fred. What was it, Fred?
Fred?
It's got a death curse. No, what was his name?
Oh,
the drunk.
God damn it, leave people alone.
Wherever the red dot goes, you bang.
No, Crazy Ralph.
Was it Crazy Ralph? God damn it, Ralph.
You're doomed. You're doomed.
Anything else? Any other good lines? Are you hearing me?
You tell him, Mom. Will you shut the fuck up?
Wherever the red light goes, you bang.
Yeah. I mean,
anything else? That's about
it's
it.
a fun series, and it's funny because, like I said, I'm revisiting all these old movies like Citizen Kane and
I'm sorry,
Blanca, and
fuck that,
great Hollywood movies. So no, they're not. These are not great Hollywood masterpieces. I thought they were when I was younger because that's all I watched.
No, but they're fun.
They're fun.
That's the bottom line.
They're
We're not sick, sadistic people, are we? We don't enjoy watching kids get killed. We don't enjoy watching these kills, do we? Are we sick people for enjoying this kind of stuff?
Well, we do enjoy watching them, but I do also realize that there's a fine. They're fun. They're hokey, and I think they made them hokey on purpose to get you to realize to have fun. The best ones were the ones they weren't necessarily scary. They were just fun. Jason Lives is not a very violent of a movie. It's one of the
five favorite kills. The sleeping bag from 7.
Sleeping bag.
Both agree on that one. All right, everyone. So remember that. I think that's number 1, the sleeping bag. I think Kevin Bacon in the first one.
Kevin Bacon definitely.
So there's 2.
The Crispin Glover's corkscrew death.
And 4.
I would also say the guy with chains, the hacksaw.
In 4. Oh, so there's 2 kills in 4. And I thought we had a 5th one. Yeah, we did. It was the.
A lot of good ones.
I thought the wheelchair in 2 was probably 5.
I would say the decapitation in 8 with the boxing.
There's your top 5 kills. I think I'd have to agree, actually. So those are the top 5 kills.
I think we've actually witnessed on screen like 100 kills more. So a lot of them, I would say 60% of them are good. Really, like.
Yeah, that's about right.
So
But those 5 are probably pretty much sum up the best kills that Jason's have had.
I don't know if those are the best. Those are the ones that I'm just thinking of right now.
Go for part 4, man, because that is probably the best with kills.
Yeah. What do you think? 4 is the most violent? No.
Yeah.
9 is the most.
I think 4's got the best kills.
Probably.
Especially Jason's death. When you factor that in as well, it really becomes a.
Would you say 4 is your favorite one?
That's a good question.
I would
No.
definitely say 6.
I'd say 6.
What about anything else? Any other memories, like the video game? Do you ever play the video game?
Occasionally. I always had to run all the way across the country to save Shelly, but I couldn't. So Shelly died. So then I tried to save Mary, and I ran and I beat up snakes and jumped canyons. But then no, I'm serious. Then they die. You only have a certain amount of time to get to them, right?
You're describing Pitfall.
No, that's not Pitfall. No, Jason. Friday the 13th, the NES game. Yeah, you have to run to a cabin. I never made it.
Right.
She'd be like, help, help, and then he'd kill her. And I'd be like, well, fuck. And I have to go get my lunch and eat it and then go get Shelly, but then he'd die. I'd slowly run out of friends until I was all that left, and I killed myself.
That game?
Yeah, and then I killed myself. I was like, well, fuck, I'm all alone. I may as well just shoot
I
myself.
like the ending in that game. You and your friends are dead. Game over.
Well, I guess the last question I have here is the top 3 Jason movies that you would recommend to any fan that wants to get into it. Top 3.
To get into Jason movies,
Here it is.
I would definitely say Part 5, Part 9, and Part 10.
You will just love it then.
No, I mean, if you're not going to see it from the beginning, I would definitely recommend the first one.
Yep.
Because it's the original.
1, 4, and 6.
4 and 6.
1, 4, and 6, I believe. I think Tommy Jarvis.
9.
Tommy Jarvis has a big part, I think. Tommy Jarvis, anyone's with him.
Yeah,
They're great.
yeah,
Besides
yeah,
5.
pretty much.
Those 2 that with him really stand out.
Some actually really like 5, though, because
Yeah.
it's different. So.
It is different. But the first one, I think, definitely.
You know what pisses me off is that in the Mortal Kombat, the remake for PS3,
Yeah.
and Xbox, but PS3 is better because it's got God of War. You could download Freddy, which it's like Mortal Kombat and Freddy fucking heaven. I love that game. It's like one of my most memorable recent gaming moments is playing Freddy and fucking killing Scorpion in Mortal Kombat.
That's awesome.
But no fucking Jason. I want just a fighting game done by Midway, the same guys who did Mortal Kombat, of fucking Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason. How fucking awesome would that be? And they all have their own levels. Jason has the woods, Freddy has the fucking nightmares, fucking Pinhead, Axe, the cabin. I mean, that would be awesome.
I do.
Fucking video game.
I do have one last question. How long will we be watching Friday the 13th?
I don't know. I always wondered that. You know, it's
Whole life?
when I was a kid, I was thinking, like, when I was more of like a teenager still watching them, like, I don't know if I'll be watching these movies when I'm an adult. And I'll be 30 in less than a year. I'll be 30 years old.
Wow.
And I think I've bought the entire, well, I've bought the first 8 Jason movies on DVD twice, because I bought them individually when they first came out, and then they had the box set that had all 8. I rebought that because it had extra features that the individuals didn't have, and I resold my individual Jason movie.
Yeah.
And I still to this day, my wife actually enjoys them, and she and I are complete opposites. She's a Lifetime woman. She watches Lifetime movies. These are the last kinds of movies you'd expect her to watch. She likes watching.
They grow on you.
We'll go. She actually told me the other day, "Why are you watching this? It takes my head, and that one sucks. It's so goofy." Like her Lifetime movies are.
And it's not even just these movies. It's obviously the merchandising and the image. Obviously, Jason has become a cultural icon.
I was Jason every year for Halloween. Yeah. I was Jason in my own short film.
I think it's the best horror series. It's better than Halloween. I think it's better than Nightmare on Elm Street overall as a series.
Here's the thing, Halloween, the first Halloween movie gets a lot of kudos, but after that fucking series is a disaster. The Freddy series, I actually like almost all of them. The only one I really actually didn't like was Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know.
Well, we're going to get into that series, I'm sure, at some point in a new podcast.
Let's do tonight.
We just might. But I think that about wraps up everything we need to know about Friday the 13th.
So that was our Friday the 13th
This was great.
podcast.
I had a good time, Lenny.
Yeah.
It really was. Shake my hand.
Awesome. Shake my
Camera, man.
All right.
I hope this was instrumental in helping you watch these terrible movies because we love them so much. All right, so that's
Next
it.
week we'll do Sleepaway Camp. This is Lenny Sherman
And Matt Weatherford.
signing off.
Have a good night. Happy slashing.
Ow!
Naked men.